for Daniel in the Deacon's Den, and Deacon Dan Brahier is joining us right now. Always keeping busy. It's always good to catch up with you, Deacon Dan. And of course, I imagine you've been pretty busy with All Souls Day and a busy week for all of that, because it has been a busy week. How are you?
Good, Ron. Thank you. It has been a busy week. In fact, I was just thinking about the fact that this morning was the first day for several that we haven't been celebrating a particular feast. We had All Saints Day on Saturday, All Souls Day on Sunday. We celebrated Saint Martin de Porres on Monday, and St. Charles Borromeo yesterday. So it's like this string of amazing hits. And finally today, we actually had a day where we're not celebrating a feast day. So it's kind of a down day.
Right.
But yeah, I was really busy with a lot of things going on with All Souls Day. So we really were fortunate this year to have All Souls Day fall on a Sunday, because that's really unusual. In fact, the last time All Souls Day fell on a Sunday was 11 years ago. So it's
really?
One of those opportunities. Yeah, in 2014. So, when that happens and you get All Saints Day Saturday, All Souls Day Sunday, it really allows for some catechesis to happen. In a sense, what it does, it gives an excuse to directly address the issues of concerning death and our souls and what happens to us after death and so forth. We don't normally get that much of an opportunity to hit hard during the regular liturgical year. So I personally had the grace in my role as deacon to be able to participate in special ways and interact with people around the holy days that I wouldn't normally do because of it being on the weekend. So my week kind of started with last Tuesday, prior to the big weekend. I visited the 8th grade class at St. Rose in Perrysburg, and I talked to them about the 4 last things, of death, judgment, heaven, and hell. Talked about burying the dead as a corporal work of mercy. And we just had a good conversation about everything from liturgical traditions to purgatory. And I found that I recognize this also on our campus with our university students, that there are a lot of misconceptions about purgatory, that I try to work through with them, not the least of which is people oftentimes think that purgatory is kind of a temporary holding place where God will decide whether you go to heaven or hell. And that's just not true. We believe that purgatory is the gateway to heaven, but we need to be purified before getting in. But it's not as if once you get to purgatory, you might not make it. And so we had an opportunity to kind of talk about that and what that looks like for us after our death. And then on Sunday, I, of course, assisted at the All Souls Day Mass at our parish, and it preempts the 31st Sunday in Ordinary Time. So it was really unusual on a Sunday to use liturgical violet, as our colors. This is a very, very different experience for our parishioners. And then later in the afternoon on Sunday, my wife and I visited both of the cemeteries where her parents and where my mom are buried, and we did ritual prayers for them and sprinkled holy water on their graves. And it's just a nice opportunity to kind of remember our deceased family members and build that in as sort of part of the weekend.
Oh, I love
and we have
that.
a tradition at St. Thomas More in Bowling Green, and it's a fairly recent tradition. We've been doing it for maybe 6 or 7 years, of processing to the cemetery on BGSU's campus. And so after the 5 o'clock Mass, there was a procession over to the cemetery to pray for the dead there and invoking the saints, and then processing back, and it kind of sends out that visual message to the university community of the honor and respect that we pray for the deceased, and how we continue to pray for those in purgatory, that they'll be able to go to heaven. So it's beautiful to get the students involved with that. We always get a good crowd for it, and even in years where we've had really cold and rain and carrying umbrellas, we still had sizable groups that went over to the cemetery. So
that's great, and it's so important to have that conversation, because we need to be praying for our saints suffering. We saints militant or church militant is our duty to pray, and we can't forget those who are in purgatory. They're on the road to heaven, so there's joy there. but they need our prayers. They are the church suffering.
Well, the book of Maccabees is really clear about that. That the dead are looking for, waiting for our prayers, that we can in some way speed up the process of them going through purgatory. But we don't really know what speed up means because God is outside of space and time. So, because that's a question I commonly get, is purgatory like 1 second? Is it 1 day? Is it a million years? I have no idea. There's no way we can know because we impose time on the world. God is outside of time.
Mm-hmm.
What we do know is that as we pray for the dead, we are praying for their swift and effective entry into heaven. And so I do. I make it a point of praying for the dead every single day. Of course, the liturgy of the hours, when we pray evening prayer, the last petition of the hours is always for the dead. So, and we on the day after, on Monday, I went back to St. Rose, and the 8th grade class processed from school to the St. Rose Cemetery. So it's a distance of about a mile, and the students did some kind of taking up of old decorations in the cemetery. And then we also had a prayer service for the dead that were buried there, and the 8th graders had an opportunity to kind of reflect on, as they walked through the cemetery, the gravestones and how old people were, how far back some of these families that are buried there have gone in the kind of the history of the parish. I was just reflecting on the fact that when I was in school, we just didn't have those opportunities, to have those conversations about the 4 last things and visit a cemetery. And I think we're doing a lot of great things today in Catholic schools that are above and beyond what we even experienced when we were growing up.
Yeah, and how valuable that is, too, to be learning about that. And I'll bet they had a lot of great questions, too. Yeah,
they do have a lot of good questions. And I was impressed. In fact, when I left there on last Tuesday, having visited the class, I was just reflecting on how many good things that they had asked. The students were very on point, very live. They had lots of insights, lots of questions about what does the Bible say about this, and what does the church believe about that. And when I first started my teaching career, the assistant principal at the high school I was working at said, when students ask you a question, if you don't answer it, who will? And that's my responsibility is to try to help them with things. So, it's overall just a full week of remembering the dead, celebrating festivities, junior high kids, college students, parishes. The other reflection that I had is kind of sort of interesting is that this coming Sunday, we celebrate the feast of the dedication of the Lateran Basilica.
Yeah.
And, that feast day bumps the Sunday readings off. So it's reflecting on the fact that the 31st Sunday, we never actually did those readings because we did All Souls. And the 32nd Sunday, we won't do those readings either because of the Lateran Basilica. So we actually skip from the 30th week in ordinary time to the 33rd, next week. So it's kind of an interesting way to wrap up a liturgical year. But what a beautiful way to celebrate it, to kind of to be able to mix these holy days with the Sundays when we have our whole congregation present.
Absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes we wonder what happened to that ordinary time. What happened to that one that we skipped a couple? We didn't skip them, we just didn't do those readings, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Very good. Deacon Dan Brahier, always a pleasure. And, man, you really kind of come to our rescue on Wednesdays about exactly when we need it. So thank you for being there.
I do my best. Thanks, Ron. You have a great week.
Thanks, you too. God bless.